Hello everyone, my name is Yves Shu from Affluence Private. In this video, I wanted to run through the cash flow section of the Myprosperity platform, which is very useful if you want to keep track of your expenses and, for example, what you're spending money on as well. Now, very simple to go into. So rather than going into the wealth section, we go into the cash flow section. So here, for example, you can actually filter the accounts that you want to see in terms of bank accounts and credit cards. Because, for example, you might have a wide range of bank accounts and credit cards coming through into the portal. Some of those might be appropriate because that's where you're spending money from. But there might be a wide range of accounts, for example, where there's no real transactions or no expenditure. And so we would want to filter those out. So very easy to do. So in this scenario, we're going to select all of the accounts. And then we can also choose a relevant time period that we would like to review. And that obviously flows through here in the summary, where we can see how much we are spending in particular categories. Now, if you want to have a look at the expenses first, you will notice that quite a few transactions will be tagged automatically into a particular category. So, for example, World Vision is a charitable donation. We can actually tag that as a tax deduction, which will be useful for when we do our tax return. And so what will happen is whenever you change a category or a tag, you have the option of setting up a particular rule, which means that any expense with this description will be allocated to a particular category going forward and will potentially be flagged as a deduction as well. When you click next, you will actually see a list of all the relevant transactions that are affected by that rule, and then you can choose to confirm. And then going forward, obviously, that will be allocated automatically for you. Similarly with groceries, healthcare, medical. Now you may want to tag this as a different category. So you might actually say, look, that's, let's see, a hobby, for example. Or we can set up different categories as well, which I will show you in a minute. But you get the idea in terms of this sort of allocating of expenses into particular categories. Now, we can actually set up categories ourselves if we go into Tools and then click Manage Categories. So you will see here, there's particular subsections of expenses like bills, for example, which include all of these. We've got education, we've got entertainment, fees. So you can see all of these expense categories are pre-filled onto the portal. And so that's where you can then allocate your expenses to. Now, if you wanted to set up a particular custom category, all you have to do is click here. And so for jets, as we saw before, we can actually make that a gym membership. We click enter and that creates the category. And then essentially we just need to drag it to the appropriate category, which in this case might be gym membership, for example. We click save. And then if we go back into our cash flow section and we go back into, I think it was under the healthcare medical. So what we can do now is see how this category has now appeared. So we can actually allocate that to gym membership. And then we can set up an auto rule, click next. And so in this case, there's only one transaction because this is obviously a dummy client, but you get the idea. So this is how we can basically then tailor our particular expense categories to the ones that we want to see. So what I would suggest is that once a month, for example, you go through these expenses and you start to allocate them to particular categories. It would be useful as well if you make a list of all the expenses or the budget that you want to see for your family, and then to set it up accordingly. And then the next step is to actually set up a budget here. As you can see here, these are the the funds or the money that we spent in particular categories. Now we can actually set a monthly budget or an annual budget, for example, and then put in those actual dollar amounts. So let's say our gym membership budget is $600 per annum. We'll be able to track that. We've spent $200 towards our budget of 600, and we can do the same with all of these different categories as well. So have a think about how you would like your budget to be set up, what expense categories might be useful for you, because obviously in here we can delete categories as well, so we can actually drag those out and then add in other ones. So it's very flexible from that perspective. So I hope this has given you a bit of an insight in terms of how you can fine-tune your cash flow section on the portal. I would probably suggest that you do this initially on your desktop rather than on your phone, because I think it'll be a lot more practical to do it on a computer rather than a small phone screen. Obviously, if you have any particular questions, please feel free to contact me, and then we can help you set that up accordingly.